So again, let me remind you that you are still on to tutorial lecture series on your favorite channel, Comm Naija, and we are discussing news writing and reporting, and we are going to look at sources of news stories. What are the sources of news? Where are those places that we get news from? Is there a place where news is they just stack it there and every day they will refresh it like a computer program so that we can pick the one for the day? Let me say it is not. That's not the way it is. That's not how it is. News has to be sourced, and there are specific sources where we can regularly get news from. There are those ones that we really need to work hard at to get news from, and it is going to task your ingenuity and your attention to detail sometimes to get news. So let's look at the sources of news stories. Number one, I've said it earlier, let me say it again. The government is the biggest source of news. So government documents, official sources, government releases, government offices, policy documents, the National Assembly, State House of Assemblies, people who are connected to government officials, the government officials themselves, sometimes their family members, their activities, whatever they do, whatever is in or around government or governance is a major source of news. Government, governance, government offices, government documents, policies, constitutions, government laws. They are all source of news. It is a major source of news. That's a major traditional source of getting the news. So government is a major source of news. Then personal observation. It is called nose for news. Your nose must be up, like the pig is always up grunting. Your nose must always be up for news. So it is personal observation. How much of your environment do you pay attention to note those things that are newsworthy in your environment? How much do you pay attention to see what is happening around you so that you can glean the news from there and put it together for reportage? So personal observation. It is from personal observation that you get most of what we call breaking news today. It is from personal observation. For instance, when a natural disaster is about to happen, it could happen and the press could miss it. When accidents happen, it could happen and the press will miss it. If the pressman, the reporter in that environment is not personally observant. So personal observation is an important source of news. Then there are cultivated sources. Sometimes the news don't come to you. You have to go after the news. So in the process of going after the news, you can't just wake up and start chasing what you don't have a hang on. So there are sources that as a reporter you cultivate over time, over the years. For instance, if there are traditional strongholds that are able to generate news for you, like for instance the NURTW. In this time, if you don't have any personal relationship with NURTW officials and you want to go and ask about maybe why is there so much violence around the parks in the nation, you might not get the best of feedback to report on if you don't cultivate them as source. So or when there is a family feud around the chieftaincies, yes, if you are not used to the story around the chieftaincies, if you are not used to the chieftaincy families, if you have not cultivated that source, you will not be able to get the juicy stories of what is happening. So cultivated sources are a major source of news, and events are a source of news too. When corporations are holding events, when prominent individuals are holding events, their events are a source of news because number one, it's a source of news because of the creme de la creme of society that might attend, and because when prominent people in society are having their events, most of the time politicians are there and they tend to make policy statements in and around those places. So it is up to you as a reporter to have your noses up to get juicy news from these events. Then we have what we call news breaks or breaking news. We are used to breaking news. When you sit, you just hear this is Channels breaking news, this is AIT breaking the news, this is Arise News breaking the news, this is TV Continental breaking news. You get the news breaking at different points in time. News or breaking news are not are events that you don't plan for. It is breaking news when it is against the run of play. It is against the normal order of everyday life. It is not breaking news if the event has been pre-scheduled. But for instance, let's say, okay, the president is to visit a state of Nigeria, and in their bid to host him, the state governor had made significant preparations to host the president. Then, the moment the president arrived, because of the high rate of insecurity in the system now, there are a lot of instances where every security beef up has to be done, bomb squads doing their thing. Then they have all these dogs that they use. Let's not assume that as the president is stepping out of his car, the bomb squad dog, the sniper dog, the dogs that sniff around, just get off the leash of the person manning it and charges at the president. That would be breaking news, because it is against the normal order of plan. It is against the plan of that day. So breaking news are those events that happen against the normal order of events, of planned events. And a sure source of information, of news, is politics. Politics will always dominate the news. Politics, politics, politics. Anytime, any day, the actions of politicians, their inactions, when they speak, it makes the news. When they keep quiet, it makes the news. When they leave, they make the news. And eventually, even when they die, they're still in the news. So politics is a sure source of news stories.
Here at Comm Naija, we make your educational journey engaging and enjoyable. Connect with us via X, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Comm Naija. Comm Naija, where knowledge meets entertainment.
We are still on your favorite channel, Comm Naija, on your tutorial lecture series. We are discussing news writing and reporting. And we'll be looking at the guiding principles of reportage, What are those principles that guide reporting? Quickly, let's look at it. Professionalism. Your training as a journalist, all those years in school, it prepares you to report the news. Your professionalism. Then, after your professionalism, we also look at your ethical stance. Ethics. Ethics is not the law. Ethics is what is right, your knowledge of what is right or wrong, and your application of it. It is morality. It is basic morality. It is knowing that this is right or this is wrong. For instance, I remember as a collegiate editor of a newspaper, we had this event. Because we were quite young and adventurous. There was something that happened in a village very close to the locality of where I schooled. There was an event about there was a killing, sort of, and it was alleged that it was ritual killing. So we quickly dashed to the village, and we tried to get information about that event. And I was the collegiate editor, and I assigned one of the team members to it, and he was to write the report. We covered the story together, so I was there. And when he turned in his report, his headline was to blow the whole thing out of proportion, and it was to say his report tilted to the fact that he tilted his report to blame the other party that we were unable to speak with, but we only spoke with one party. We couldn't get the opinion of the other party. But because we couldn't get their opinion, we had to turn in the report to meet our own timeline. So when the report came, when he submitted his report, I looked at it, and he was an elderly member of our team at the time, and he has my respect. And there was a decision to be made on ethical grounds. If we publish it as is, we will still be right, because we had every evidence to back that whatever we are writing is the story we got. But it wasn't going to be right or fair to the people on the other party who we did not hear from. So I insisted, number one, we changed the headline from what was going to be a screamer to what was going to be a mild notification of the event, not taking a position on the event. And if we had blown that story the way he wanted it, we would have made money, because it was going to be a very big screamer headline for us, being being a collegiate newspaper. It was going to be a screamer. But at that point in time, I had the decision to make. My editorial mettle as a cub, was tested, and thankfully, eventually, we were able to wade it, and we still made it. So it is an ethical decision. So ethics is going to be a major guiding principle in and around your reportage all through your career. Then we talk about legalities. If what you are reporting is against the law, then you might have to answer for it. So you need to be familiar with the laws, you need to be familiar with regulations, you need to be familiar with policies, you need to be familiar with bylaws of local governments, and sometimes the practices around a particular geography might be stronger than the laws. So you need to factor practices in, because sometimes they wield the force of law without being the law, actually. And there are instances too where traditional practices are referenced even by the learned judges, by the honorable judges and justices when they are giving their judgments. So it is important that we pay attention to laws, legalities, and practices that have the force of law, so to say. Then one thing is going to tell the difference between Reuben Abati and every writer, every journalist of his era. It was his flair that marked him out. Between every Dan Agbese of his era, it was his flair that marked him out. So your flair is going to mark you out. And how do you develop flair? You need to read wide. You need to interact with brilliant people. You need to have your way with words, because these things will eventually mark you out as a top journalist. So those are the principles guiding reportage.
Here at Comm Naija, we make your educational journey engaging and enjoyable. Connect with us via X, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Comm Naija. Comm Naija, where knowledge meets entertainment.
It is good to know that you are still staying with us on tutorial lecture series on your favorite channel, Comm Naija. And it is good to know that you are following closely on our discussions on reporting, news writing, and reporting. And we are discussing challenges with reporting. In our climb here in Nigeria, one of the major challenges with news reporting is legal constraints. The laws of the land, they hold us back. We have the Official Secrets Act. We have the Seditious Publications Act. We have the Libel Act. Libelous Publication Act. So those things they impact what can be reported. There are legal frameworks that are in place that impact what can be reported and how they can be reported. We also have we are aware that the Freedom of Information Act has been passed, but in spite of that, the Freedom of Information Act only empowers you to get the news and also puts some pressure on government agencies and government officials to actually release the information to you. But ultimately, you still have a commitment, you still have a responsibility on how you eventually report the news. So legal constraints is a major challenge with news reportage, with news reporting. Then we have governments and government policies. A government that is media friendly, a government that wants the information about their activities out to the people every time will be easier to cover than a government who only wants to report what is good about themselves, who hide information when they feel it does not work in their best interest. So government policies will always impact reportage, will always be a challenge for reporting the news. Governments and government policies. Then we have a major constraint to reporting finance. Finance is a major constraint with reportage. There are instances where the news have broken and you have covered the breaking news, but you need to do follow-ups. You need to travel, you need to meet people, you need to mobilize people, you need to In some instances, you need to do a bit of surveillance and follow up on news events so that you can get to the heart of it and eventually fully and comprehensively inform the people, the public. But you realize that the finances are just not there. The owners are concerned about keeping costs down, and the finances are not limitless. There are other things, there are other bits that are competing for the funds. So eventually you find that you are limited by finance. So finance is a major challenge with reporting the news. Then there is an interesting one that is that has to do with the reporter himself. This is what I would call conflict of interest or relationships. Conflict or interest or relationships. What is conflict of interest? Conflict of interest is where you have a vested interest in the news not getting reported, where the news not getting reported serves your personal end. So it is an ethical challenge, and most of the time journalists do fall prey of this. We are all human after all, but importantly, our humanity should not get ahead of our professionalism, because ultimately we serve humanity. And so anytime we let our humanity, our self-interest get ahead of our professional commitment, it is always going to be a challenge. And this will always be tested. It will always be a challenge for the practice of journalism. You know, there have been several accusations around jello journalism and sensationalization of news and all those things. And it is important for journalists to pay attention to the fact that, yes, I have a responsibility, and that responsibility trumps anything I gain or benefit from a relationship with the parties that are involved in these things. Well, these things are easy to say, but when you get into the actual practice, you find that it is really challenging. And before I close, I'll still reference a personal story as a collegiate editor. It was a bit challenging. Then I remember the SUG president. He shares my faith. He shares my religious faith, and he, at the time, being the SUG president, and because we share the same religious faith, they had some issues around managing the union's funds, and I, as the collegiate editor, and my team, we had dug up information about some of the mismanagements. And while we were talking about it, the SUG president invited me, and we had a discussion. And because some of the issues were going to impact his reputation, so he begged me, he spoke to me, and he said, on the basis of our shared faith, can these things not pass? And there were some other people who also share, who are opinion leaders that also tried to pester me and not to report it. But eventually, because I told my team, we are putting a lot of work to this, and it is our duty to inform the college body, to inform the students body. So eventually I insisted, and we eventually reported the story. But on the balance of play, because when you have vested interests, yeah, because I also had vested interest, and the vested interest I had was that, okay, I told them, well, the only way I can help you mitigate this situation is, okay, if you think you have any achievement, bring it, we'll publish it, so that at least when people are looking at the scandal, they will also see some of your achievements, and we find a way of balancing it. So sometimes these conflicts of interest do come, but they must be managed professionally. It must not in any way deter your reportage and your responsibility of informing the public. It is very crucial that people should have the information that they should get when it is within your coffers as a journalist. So please, it is important that we look at this properly. So we will move further and discuss writing the news.
Here at Comm Naija, we make your educational journey engaging and enjoyable. Connect with us via X, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Comm Naija. Comm Naija, where knowledge meets entertainment.
Writing the news. So how do we write the news? In writing the news, there are elements that we call the 5 W's and H of writing the news. The 5 W's and H. The 5 W's and H tells us who. The first W is who. We want to know who is involved, the people that are involved in this, a person, a creature, or whatever it is. Who is involved? Who? Then the next W is what did the person do? What was done? What was done? What was done? The next W after who, we have looked at who is involved. We have looked at what happened, what did the person do. Then we looked at when was it done. Look at the timeline of when the event happened. When was it done? Then we look at where to determine proximity and geography. Where was it done? Where did it happen? Where? Then we will look at why. Why was it done? We try to find a reason. We try to find a purpose for the action. Then we look at the H, which is how was it handled eventually, or how was it resolved eventually. So the 5 W's and H. While the 5 W's and H don't specifically have to follow in the order that I have presented it, but the slant of the news, if it's going to be the inverted pyramid or the pyramid style, it's going to determine, or the storytelling style, the style will determine which of the W's come first, or even if it is the H that will come before the W's. But importantly, your style must be clear. Your language must be simple to carry people along. And when you are giving instances, when you are giving analogies, you should be able to situate them in such a way that the people can relate to it. You should be able to link them, particularly when the news is, when you have to do repeated updates on the news, you have to link them and recalls so that people can be carried along. They can be given full information about it, or you can even reference. You can say, okay, you can refer to the report of this date on your publication, so at least to guide the person to the point where the news was first reported. And these are basic things that guide news reportage and news writing and reporting. Till we come your way again in our next video, please keep paying attention to this program, tutorial lecture series on your favorite channel, Comm Naija. Till we come your way again, do have a nice time. Thank you.